Hey Jim, it's me, Walter. How are you?
How are you?
Yeah, you get to
Can you see me?
We can see you. Can you see
How's
us?
it going, brother? How are you?
Really good. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I'm happy to. How are y'all doing?
Great.
So everybody, Jim Cummings. This is the University of Colorado Denver Filmmaking Club.
Nice to meet y'all.
Very nice.
So, what'd you think of the film? Any good? Should I dump it? What should I do?
It's pretty good. We're sitting in Thunder Road, so it's a little bit of a different energy in here than super excited right away.
Yeah, that poor guy, man. We put him through hell the way.
Yeah, we did. Just right away, 12 minutes of it. So we love Thunder Road, and we just want to talk to you about your movie.
Yeah, it's a comedy.
It is a comedy. It's very funny.
Yeah, thank you. It's important. We made it that way as like ammunition for people who are going through hell, where they're like, oh, I'm never going to do it like that. Like, it'll never be that bad. So whatever I'm going through is going to be fine.
Yeah.
So before we get started, Jamie, introduce yourself. Nick, introduce yourself. You guys are going to moderate tonight.
Yeah, I'm Jamie. I'm a sophomore in the program here, and I'm aspiring to direct, write, to do everything. This is Nick.
Yeah. Also a sophomore, also wanting to write and direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're also on the board of this film club, and you're our first guest, so we're very excited for...
I'm the first guest. Oh my god.
Yes.
I'm not live up to it. Okay, damn.
Yeah.
Or I could just bomb, and then it's fine too. I'm the first. This is great.
It'll never be worse than tonight.
No.
Right.
Can only go up from here. So...
Okay, wonderful.
You developed Thunder Road it's a one-shot movie, and it's a 6-hour shoot on that day. Can you talk us through how you got the short version of Thunder Road off the ground? If I keep looking up here, it's because you're big and giant. I should look here.
No, it's totally fine. So I was a producer at a comedy company called College Humor, and I was doing branded sketches that I was the line producer for, so I didn't even really have any creative say over what was going to be in the sketches. So I was probably doing 2 or 3 sketches a week with a team of improv comics that had a lot of UCB training. I didn't have any of that, and sitting on the sidelines, it got me really down and out as to the missed opportunities. And I grew up watching Alan Partridge and Ricky Gervais and really challenging comedy and performance stuff, and Alfonso Cuarón's movies, and I was like, you know what? Someday somebody's gonna come along and fuse these things and just burn College Humor to the ground. And I was like, I can't wait for that. So really, the thing that got it made was pettiness and ambition. I wanted to show off. I wanted to be actually challenging and funny. My background was in hand-drawn animation for 6 years, producing that for my buddy Danny. And the goal of that was to get audiences to go, I can't believe they did that. I can't believe they worked on every frame to make that animation. And I felt like long takes were the same thing that were gathering that audience feeling after seeing Children of Men, of like, oh my God, think of all the planning that went into that one shot. And then I really just wanted to do it, and I was in a pizzeria, and I talked to these 2 cops, and they said that if you're going to a funeral, you have to wear the uniform in a few states. And I was like, oh my God, that would be so funny to do that and to humiliate myself. And really, it was a single day. Like you said, it was 6 hours, and we reached out to this tiny funeral home in Altadena, California, and it was kind of perfect. And I did probably 3 weeks of rehearsals in the car on the drive to work and back, and it was never really a script. It was just me doing the muscle memory of all of the small pantomimes. Everything was scripted. There's no improv in it, because it's a long take. The boom mic has to be in the right spot anytime I'm doing something. So even like the stupid pantomime of me standing up with the boom box, and I'm working the boom box, and you see me come up and then like pull my pants up. It was a very dumb kind of Steve Coogan, Alan Partridgeism, but all of that, the camera had to move at exactly the right pace based on my biology. And all of that was thought through. When you revealed a cell phone, it was a lot of heavy thinking as an editor and writer and performer, but that's what made it great. I had all of the time in the world to focus on what was going to make something extremely impressive for an audience and run at that.
Yeah.
So naivete, I guess, is also an answer as to how that film got made.
You talk about how you find one takes are showing your audience something that they've never seen before. And off of Thunder Road, you developed a bunch of other one take films. Can you speak to why you think the singular take is so important for your tone and your messaging in your movies?
It's incredibly impressive when you do a really well constructed shot. And if it is deceptively simple, that is my favorite kind of conversation to have with an audience as a filmmaker. Where if you're watching a movie like Birdman, if I didn't know, nobody told me what the gimmick was going to be when I went in to see it, and I was like, oh, this is still much. Oh wait, this might all be one shot, and it's such a fulfilling thing where you're in direct conversation with the audience. It's much more based in theater. It's difficult to maintain the audience's attention. It's not just performance, it's also editing in prep of exactly how the thing is going to play out. And so I knew that it was a tightrope that other people in the sketch comedy world and in the comedy world in general were not doing. And I thought, well, this is a challenge. I should do it because people get rewarded for delivering on challenges. So I made 9 more single take short films after that before doing my first real feature, the Thunder Road feature. And I feel like if I had won Sundance with the short and then raced out to do a feature, it wouldn't have been very good. I feel like I needed to figure out how an audience pays attention over 90 minutes, and how I speak the language of feature filmmaking rather than watching a million movies and thinking that I'd be able to dive into the deep end. So yeah, I really like long takes for that reason, that it feels like you can chaperone the audience in a way and prove to them in real time that they're in good hands. And that's my favorite experience in watching a film.
Your experience as like a producer, an editor, a writer, a director, an actor, a score artist, you're thinking in all of these modes all at once. And do you attribute your work as a producer to your ability to execute on such a high level in these one takes? Or do you think you're pulling from all of these different aspects of your life?
Yeah, it's difficult. So when you're making movies and you've worked every job on a film set, it allows you to captain the ship much better. David Fincher talks about this a lot, where he was a production assistant and did basically every job on a film set. And then when he transitioned into directing music videos, he knew how long it was going to take to set up that light because he had done it. So then he was like, cool, now I have 15 minutes to work with this actor. It all is speaking together. And when you're a producer for many years, you're already doing the TikTok or like the scheduling of what is going to be happening at any given time on a film set. So just by thinking and knowing how this aircraft carrier works, you grow to become good inside of the diplomacy and making sure that you get the shots that you need when you transition into being a director. So I'd already had a great deal of experience on set, and I think it really is important. I think it might be one of the only reasons that my movies are any good, is because I know how they're going to be put together, because I'm an editor. And then when I write a script, I do a lot of it out loud, and so I know exactly how long the scene's going to be because I'm, doing it. And then we record it as a podcast, so I'm also the sound mixer. I'm putting in music and sound design and trying to make an audio version of the film before we even show up on set, so that we all know that the jokes are going to work or how they should be delivered. There's a lot less faffing about and just trying to find it on the day. And I attribute a lot of my success in film to that kind of heavy thinking beforehand, and the fact that I can answer at any given moment. If the dolly wheels are not the right size, this happened on our last film, the 2 shorts that we shot in January, that the dolly wheels were not the right size, and that was going to take a long time for them to go to pick up the dolly wheels and come back. So I was like, cool, so we're not going to get that first. I'm going to make the executive decision. Now we have to move to close-ups, so we need to change wardrobe for that thing real quick. But that wouldn't have happened had I not had the experience of loading that dolly before and having driven to North Hollywood and know how far that place is. I think working every department allows you to speak the language of film much clearer and deliver a better product. So you're not like, damn, I wish we had more time, or I wish this one thing hadn't gone awry. It's very stressful, but it's in my case more fulfilling.
You talked about your writing process a little bit there, and about how you'll create these almost like audioscapes that you're then sending to your actors. Could you talk a little bit more about what those deliverables look like for you?
Yeah, they get pissed. No, it's funny. So basically, in every film school class, they always tell me not to line read, and that's like a controversial thing that comes from the theater, where the actor's in charge. They're the one that has to walk out on the tightrope. The director stays behind the stage, and so it's a rude thing to ask somebody to deliver a line a certain way in the theater. But when I'm doing the screenplay, the jokes have to work. And if an actor, I don't know how they do it in TV, but I've heard stories about they like get new sides, like the script for the day, and they read it in the trailer and makeup, and then they have to go out and do the thing. I would never be able to do that. It would suck. English and language and comedy are so complex that you can, mispronounce a certain syllable in one word and it changes the entire meaning of the sentence. And so you can misunderstand a text message in reading it, and actors sometimes misinterpret entire cadences or tones or deliveries. And I used to be an actor, and so I kind of feel like it's easier for me to just do it. And then some actors are very thankful for it, where they're like, "Oh, I get it now. Yeah, it makes sense okay, I get it." Like the comedy is so complex that awkward pauses are important, and it's difficult to fit that stuff in. Like Thunder Road, the short is so complex. I like look at the crowd and I squint and shake my head, and that says, "Oh, I wish I hadn't said that out loud." And like that is something that if I had put that into the script would be 50 pages. Like you can't fit all of that micro performance stuff in. But if it's delivered in audio format, the audience, the listener can sometimes get it. So yeah, we'll write the script often out loud, and then workshop it for a long time. So it'll be like a year and a half of developing a movie. And then finally it's like, I think we're ready to go into screenplay format from this like notes document on an iPhone or a Google Doc. And then, is this interesting at all? Please interrupt me if I'm just filibustering. Okay.
Super interesting.
Thank Christ. So really it's about doing a huge amount of research or thinking, and it takes years. Like we did this Victorian horror movie that we wrote that's wonderful. Probably the best thing I'll ever write. My buddy PJ and I did it, and it took 2 years of research of what it was like in the Victorian era. I had to read all these books and make sure we were getting it right. And then it was 2 years of that and bullshitting with PJ and getting drunk and talking about stuff, and what funny things you could put into it. And then when we finally sat to write it down, we'd already written it. Like we already knew how the thing was going to be. And then we, talked the whole thing out. We put in the jokes that we had in our Google Doc. The writing aspect of being in screenplay format is very stupid. It's very much the tip of the iceberg. And that just becomes a blueprint for the podcast. The podcast is a much better representation of what the movie's going to be. So that's my writing process. Long answer, short question. So sorry.
And you talk about prep being a really important part of your process. What does prep look like in a feature as opposed to a short film?
Yeah. There's a lot more worry. There's a lot more thinking production-wise of can we shoot these scenes back to back, or is that going to be too much stress? Or can we rent a camera package for a long weekend rather than the one day and then return it and shoot these? Like, there's a lot more infrastructure that goes into a feature of just renting locations and getting permits and stuff. It's just a lot more heavy thinking, and making sure that all the departments are working together. Also, I've probably hired and fired 500 people in my lifetime, and I have a core team of people. I have a production designer who I love to death. I have a composer who I love to death.
they're just juggernauts that would, at the drop of a hat, come on set and make stuff with us. So I'm very lucky in that sense. But really, with department heads, it's like diplomacy. You want to make sure that nobody's toes feel like they're being stepped on. Um, it's a Yeah, the biggest lesson I learned in filmmaking recently was diplomacy and working with a studio, because it's one thing to be able to tell a studio executive that they've never edited a YouTube video before. Why are they giving notes on the edit? And it's another thing to keep my fucking mouth shut because they've got to spend 500 grand pushing the movie out, and I can't have them be unhappy with me. So yeah, it's very different. It's very different. And uh, when you show up on set, it's very much the same. You just got to get the shots in the can. Uh, and then you realize that the location that you picked a month ago is not the right size. It's not going to be big enough. And so you got to change the shot list and get it before the sun goes down. It's a lot of stress, but it's the most invigorating thing on the planet. So I can't complain too much.
You just talked about working with a studio, and I know that for Thunder Road was almost exclusively crowd equity funding. And you talk about that. Would you talk about what it's like to respond to people that you know versus talking to a studio?
Yeah, so with a studio, it's difficult because a lot of the executives are old white dudes and like Bruce Willis movies. And, it's just a challenge of taste often. We were lucky we had two younger executives who were very nice and knew about Facebook ads and Reddit and good movies. But then you have to kind of push some ideas up the ladder, and that's challenging, just like corporate entertainment. I could talk about that for an hour, and it's all just contained in one word: Hollywood. I spend too long talking about it. We all know what that word means. It's bullshit. And you work with Hollywood, Dave Chappelle is very right about that stuff. So making movies with friends and through crowd equity, Thunder Road we did through a Kickstarter campaign, which was awesome. The short film was already out there, and fans and people wanted to support, came out and helped out. And then we sold shares to strangers who didn't have the time to back the Kickstarter. They're already wrapped up. And then we did the studio movie, the werewolf movie, and then we did Beta Test, which was a crowd equity campaign. And that was more stressful because we had friends of ours give 15 grand, like a couple, Lee and Cindy. And that's incredibly stressful because it's like, oh, we really have to get the money back. I think I'll probably do that again. We are the only WeFunder film that has returned the money, and we are the only WeFunder film that has returned the money with full ROI. So not only it was a wise decision for them to invest, it was really fulfilling for us to not take a fucking note from anybody. Most times you have four people that give 50 grand, and everybody is too nervous to step on each other's toes that they don't really give notes. And so we got Final Cut in a way that we didn't with studio films. And I much prefer it that way.
Understandable.
So yeah, those are the biggest difference. Those are the biggest ones of it's a nice thing to have a big campaign. Steven Soderbergh says this. He goes, you make one for them, one for you. Luckily, they're all for me. But by doing one with the studio system, it becomes a commercial for your other works that otherwise, most people wouldn't see.
Do you think finding that balance in between making your own movies, you have a YouTube video on your channel where you just talk about the film industry for like 4 minutes, and you talk about—
oh my God, this guy's a stalker. Okay, here we go.
You talk about wanting to make movies outside of the system so that you have that full creative control that you're talking about. But in this day and age, do you still think that that's a viable thing, or do you think that this bouncing back and forth in between a commercial movie and then a crowdfunded movie is the balance that you have to strike?
You're asking me if I think we could do it all through the internet or exclusively through studios. I've never really had any luck with studios. All my movies are in the black, and they're very well reviewed. I'm an A student on Rotten Tomatoes for all my movies, but that doesn't really matter. I think what studios want are just selfies with celebrities and putting celebrities and stuff. And I hate celebrities more than anything. I hope they all choke to death. And so because of that, I don't really get things greenlit a whole lot. And so I really do want to go back to crowdfunding because I think it really is a necessity for young people who are just starting out. You could spend 20 years of your life, or kids who I graduated with, who are still climbing the corporate ladder with the daydream that somebody's going to come along and think that they're a good writer or director, and they're working in different studios in subordinate positions. But it's like the technology is there now. You can go and make something on your own. You can raise the money on your own. Like when we put out beta test, basically for 15 years, people told us that by doing it yourself and not hiring a publicist and not, taking a distribution deal from a smaller distribution company, that you were going to be worthless. And our movie was on the front page of iTunes next to James Bond. And like audiences don't care. I'm probably preaching to the choir. Like I think younger people probably know that the system is rigged and it's stupid, and it's much better to make movies that have cursing and violence in them, because you can't see that stuff on TV. So yeah, if the goal is to stand out and make a name for yourself and a career for yourself, the answer is obviously you have to go just through the internet. What's that, dude?
So I have a question. What do you wish that you knew at the beginning of your career that someone had told you when you're these guys' ages and you're dreaming about making movies and stuff? What do you wish someone had told you at that moment?
Daydreams are seductive, and they can lead you astray for many years. So there's a great movie called Lenny Cook by one of the Safdies, and Lenny Cook was the top pick for the draft in the NBA with LeBron and Kobe, and he was a nightmare. And at the end of the film, it's really good if you haven't seen it, but the Safdies reshot a moment where a coach was shouting at Lenny as a 19-year-old, and they brought in the 35-year-old Lenny to tell him what he wished he had heard as a 19-year-old. And it's soul crushing, as always, with the Safdies. But the daydreaming and imagining that somebody is going to come along and think that you're brilliant, you could have the best script in the world, and it doesn't matter, because your idea has to be better than any of their college buddies' ideas before they greenlight you. And the only thing that matters is what's in the frame. And if you can set the thing up and shoot it and edit it, people don't read scripts anymore. It's like you just have to do it, even if it's small. I listened to podcasts by myself, 6 years ago, and I'm like, man, I should take this guy's advice of getting up and go and make something with my friends. You forget about it. It's so seductive to be stuck and daydreaming that, by making this PDF any better, that somebody's going to give a shit. And it's not true. You should make something on a weekend with your friends and focus on audience and what is going to do very well. Watch Short of the Week, watch the channel of films that screen at Sundance, educate yourself on what is going to be culturally or socially significant filmmaking and well-crafted filmmaking, and don't listen to anybody that says you're not good enough.
As part of your workshop, as part of your mentoring and everything, you watch a lot of shorts. What catches your attention when you're looking at shorts?
It's difficult to answer that. Craftsmanship, I think, is it. That's the best word I've been able to pick, where, when you see it, it's like when you're making something and you're smiling and you're like, oh, they're doing something here. Oh, okay. Oh, I get it now. Like it's when you're watching a short film and you're feeling something, that's the thing that gets me to mark it as green to select the film for our lab. And sound design, care, it doesn't even have to be like one of the shorts that I really like is by a filmmaker in Colorado. I met him at the Ure Film Festival for a minute, but he made a film about this Korean family coming to America for the first time, and the dad having to go into a deli to ask for soup, and the guy behind the counter doesn't speak Korean, and it's really challenging back and forth with the book and stuff, and you're just so stressed out of like, it's such a small, low stakes thing for everybody else, but because you introduce it as this narrative, it's really, really wonderful. I guess getting the audience to feel something, that is something that I hate to say is revolutionary nowadays.
Can you talk more about this program that you're running, the mentorship program, your lab? Tell us about your lab.
Yeah. So after we won South by Southwest with the feature of Thunder Road, Ben Wiesner, my producer, and I realized there was no real textbook for going from short film to feature, even though Napoleon Dynamite was a short film, or Saw was a short film. There's like all of these films that have had online or lights out, like movies that were viral in whatever way possible, whatever year possible, and then they were somehow turned into a feature that was successful. And we did it with the Thunder Road feature, and we just thought, all right, well, nobody really helped us. What would we want out of a lab? And we knew a lot of short filmmakers. We had released at that point 11 short films. Vimeo was helpful in sharing the announcement. People just wanted to submit, and we've been doing it for 5 years now. This will be the 5th year. We pick 10 filmmakers from around the world. It's entirely all expense paid. We pay for the flights there and back and catering. They just have to come out and hang out. And then we partner them with mentors who we think are good fits for helping them turn their short into feature. So we've had Trey Schultz, Derek C. in France, Desiree Akhavan, just like a bunch of people that either the Sundance Institute or Twitter helps us to connect these people with. And it's been wonderful. There's been about 7 features made from the shorts, and all of the filmmakers are doing well and doing cool stuff. It's probably the best thing I'll be known for in my life. If the filmmaking goes belly up, it's a really fulfilling thing that we do every year.
Jumping from that all the way back to your writing process for these movies, Thunder Road and all of your one takes take place at such a pivotal moment in these characters' stories, but we're seeing such a wider breadth of this context. What does it look like for you to find these moments in these character stories for these shorts?
Yeah, really, it's so for the 6 shorts that we did called Minutes, my buddy Dustin and I co-wrote those, and we were thinking about what's important right now in 2016, what would be a cool story to focus on. And then it was also like, what is the most stressful thing? And he told me a story years ago about a friend of his that robbed a convenience store and took a taxi there, and then obviously got caught and went to prison for it. But it was just a funny thing that he told me about. And I was like, what does that look like? Like, what is that? Like, how out of it do you have to be? And I was like, oh, we could do it as an Uber. And then that became one of our shorts called The Robbery, where there's like the cashier has like a crossbow, and it becomes like the Revenant inside of this convenience store. And it's also very funny. And so we were just kind of thinking about what would be the most stressful, high stakes short films that we could make with these characters. And then we just give actors a bunch of plates to spin. It's just like, how many things can we have them stress out about? I mean, the Safdies do that so well in Uncut Gems. There's like so many sequences in that where it's just like, how many things can this guy be stressed about at once? And yeah, it's a funny place to put an audience. All of it was just to kind of make an audience go, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this, or I can't believe this is what's happening now. So yeah, it's just with Thunder Road, it was like, you write something that is both funny and sad, because I love Pixar movies and Inside Out. And then it's like, well, what if it's also an incredibly copywritten song? And what if it's also a dance routine? Then the mom has to be a dancer. Then we have to get ballet shoes to put on top of the coffin. And then what if he's a cop? What if it's somebody in a community where you can't show emotions? That could be interesting. And I was like, what if it's all one shot? So like really all of it is just creating more spinning plates to show off, I guess.
So how do you manage making a short or a feature that is going to be viable and something that people want to see and festivals are going to like, but then also something that you're passionate about and not just catering to kind of like the opinion of a jury or
Pandering.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I see a lot of pandering shorts. So I think you won't be led astray. I think if you do what I did, I got on Short of the Week, and I'm lucky. One of Danny's shorts that I was a producer of went to South by Southwest in 2013. This is before really Short of the Week, I think. And now you can go to different channels on Short of the Week, and it's like Sundance, South by, Cannes, Berlin. It shows you all of the films that have screened at all of these prestigious film festivals. And so I just went down the list, and that was kind of my evenings of watching shorts. I wanted to see what the landscape of filmmaking was like. And I saw a short by a filmmaker named Celia Rolson Hall called The Audition. And it's all one shot, and it's her debasing herself. She's a dancer, she's really talented. But it's her trying out for a part called Clipboard Girl 2. And she's got the clipboard. And then by the end of it, she has to like take her shirt off and gag and like cut her hair. It's this performance art piece. And it's got 1 million views on Vimeo. And I was like, oh my God, I've never seen something like that before. But that becomes this thing that people share and send around. And now I know Celia, she's such a nice, quiet person. You'd be shocked that that thing came out of her. But I knew that that was something that would do well. And then I ran at that. I was like, well, how would you make it even more impressive and also subtle and deceptively simple? And I had just familiarized myself with the canon of short filmmaking and what was celebrated. I also, my sister is a famous Irish short story writer named Claire Keegan. So I grew up reading the Irish short story and knowing about the tip of the iceberg and what was going to do very well in short format. And so I feel like I was just primed from that education and my interests in general in short.
Our industry is so interconnected, and you, especially working with crowdfunding and working with all these people and talking about these juggernauts that you bring in, what are your biggest relationship maintaining skills that you think help you every day?
Oh, I'm terrible at it.
I am terrible at it. I am a terrible politician. I'm a really good diplomat, but I'm really bad at glad handing. I like, if I'm unhappy, I have a very expressive face, and so people can tell in a boardroom that I'm unhappy about something. And so I'm really bad at that. I was never good at that stuff. I was never good in film school. Trying to convince people to help out. I was good on the phone. I was good at organizing schedules and locations for other filmmakers, but I was very timid and a bit of a wallflower. I'm not anymore, but my last film is about agencies and Hollywood being awful, and it is radioactive. And I got dropped immediately the day the movie came out. We kept it a secret from WME, who I was repped with. They never helped me anyway. So I feel like I'm probably a bad person to ask about how to have a long career and be political. But looking at South Park, it's like it's okay to make fun of stuff. It's okay to do this stuff because that's honesty. And I think there are cool people that reached out. Christopher Nolan reached out 48 hours after beta test came out and was like, come in and audition for Oppenheimer. Big people still watch small movies, and if you can be earnest and honest in a way that people in corporate entertainment can't be, the cool people will reach out.
Where do you think is the place for that kind of content moving forward? Do you think that comedy is still a Hollywood system kind of thing, or are we going to be exclusively seeing it rise on the internet?
I don't think so. I mean, comedy is very difficult because it's supposed to be subversive. From the court jester, you're supposed to make jokes that are hardcore enough, just far enough to not get your head cut off. And I feel like South Park I watch and I just laugh the whole time. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. And I feel like that is absent from a lot of stuff. So I don't think that we'll be getting another big fun Superbad anytime soon from Hollywood. They're too timid. They hate audiences, and it's very sanitized. And so I think that if we are going to get good comedy, it's going to come from the internet. And if we are going to get good horror, I think it's going to come from the internet. I feel like there is a drought of watching movies that make you feel anything. And sometimes it's because these films have been noted to death by executives. So I think for longevity reasons and career reasons, it is better to do it this way.
What do you think is the pivotal moment that changed your mindset about filmmaking?
There's a moment I remember, it's a big question, but there was a moment I remember, I mean, obviously winning Sundance felt like getting struck by lightning. I had no idea. I knew it was good, but I had no idea. I was very, very lucky. I suggest everybody do it. And then, there was a moment on set for the feature where in the morning we shot a scene where I tackle a transient man and he throws a slushie at me, and it's this one long shot, feels like a Robert Altman movie, and it was very fun to do. And then we moved from that set to the parking lot for the climax of me taking all my clothes off and shouting. If you haven't seen it, sorry, I won't spoil more than that. But we finished that day with two incredible long takes, and I got into a car with a cop car that we were driving around, and we are going back home for the day. And I was exhausted, and my buddy Danny was driving the car, and I said, "Let's do this forever." And he said, "Deal." And we shook on it, and we just laughed with the windows down and played Aerosmith. It was like a Linklater movie or something. But that was a moment of like a bond where winning every trophy since then has never been like that. People ask us, "What's it like to win Deauville? What's it like to win South by?" And my producer Ben and I always say, almost as good as being on set.
I've got a quick one, and then I'll stop hijacking these guys' time. Can you draw a line for us between comedy and horror?
So with comedy and horror, they're both punchline driven. So like with comedy, there's setup and payoff. And as film students, there's nothing more that I can teach you. Setup and payoff is everything. Watch something like Back to the Future. Every line of dialogue is so purposely there. It cannot be different because it has payoff later. It's wonderful. The production design, there's setup and payoff and everything. So really with comedy and horror, it's all punchlines. One of them is for a scare and the other one is for a laugh. And so they do work in the same kind of cadence and language. And I love it. It's one thing to get a laugh out of a crowd. And I found that to be relatively easy. Anything that we do is going to be funny, I think, I hope. But then to get a gasp out of people or just rile up a crowd as a filmmaker, to sit in the back and have people shriek is just so much fun and just as addictive. So I think it makes sense that they go hand in hand for us, but it really is neuroscientifically the same lobes of the brain that you're hitting of like when there's a big scare in a horror movie, people scream and then they all kind of laugh together. It's like, we all survived that thing. So like, with drama and people are crying and laughing and being scared, you're kind of giving them a much more full meal in the brain. And that's what Parasite is. That's what I think all great films that I love deliver on those levels. You're missing opportunities otherwise.
Can you tell us about your relationship with animation a little bit?
Yeah, so I left college, and the most talented kid in our class is a kid named Danny Madden, who's the guy in the cop car with me. And he's a filmmaker. He's on Vimeo. You can check him out. He's really talented. And he started doing hand-drawn animation because we never had any money. And he was like, I couldn't rent a location, but I could draw it. And so he started out doing animation and was good in sound design. So it was like a no-brainer. And then because his short film did really well on Vimeo, it's called Notes on Biology. It's very good. It won South by Southwest. He was kind of a rising star, and I thought that our ships could do well together. So I ran a Kickstarter campaign for him to raise 30 grand to do the finishing for his feature, his first feature, Euphonia, and then a hand-drawn animation called The Confusion Through Sand that ended up playing at South by Southwest 2013. And so I didn't know what I was doing, but I was a big fan of Pixar and had seen a million animated films. And we spent 11 months doing that animation. And it was really fulfilling to know every frame and to photograph it personally. And to go to Skywalker Sound to do the final sound. I feel like I got everything that I needed out of that experience of just how difficult it is to get something to sound right. And with animation, you start with nothing auditorially. You have to generate everything. And so that was a great lesson and education for my live action films, that sometimes you just have to turn off all of the production sound and recreate it because it's going to be better. Um, so yeah, I guess that just kind of helped me to level up all of the other stuff that I was doing afterwards. And that's what I take um, out of the world of animation.
How do you find balance with doing all of these things? You're writing, you're doing animation. Like, how do you find any life balance?
Oh, I'm a bad candidate to answer that question. I I'm really bad at that. I'm very happily married. I have a dog and a garden, and I haven't shot a feature in 4 years. We've had strikes and everything. So I have had time to just watch good movies and study and workshop. And when the time comes, I'll, jump back in to the saddle and do it. But I was so ambitious. I I had grown up around people that didn't understand the internet, that didn't understand audiences, didn't care about audiences in film school and afterwards. And I saw so many missed opportunities. And I thought someday somebody's going to come along and do, the YouTuber thing, except they're going to make 90-minute movies. And then we won Sundance for the short. And I thought, oh, maybe that's me. Maybe I should do that. And then I've started doing that, and it's been really fulfilling. Um, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's been uh, I feel like at this point there's no other alternative. I think I'm stuck doing this. So balance wise, uh, you give 14-hour days, 18-hour days, and it feels less gruesome than working in a cubicle. If you're working on your own project, you can work 20 hours straight and be wired and you're stoked. And then you could work 8 hours in a cubicle and feel like you worked 24 hours. So um, I guess committing to it and apologizing and going to therapy when you need it is very important. But I shot 3 feature films, arguably 4 with the minutes shorts, in 3 years, and lightning struck us in Park City and Austin, um, and I just thought I don't want to miss opportunities. I just want to keep making stuff, and I'm really glad I did.
What do you look for in young filmmakers when you're seeing us out of college? What do you want to see in us, and what don't you want to see?
Oh, make something fucked up. I mean, I feel like everybody's so tame. I feel like all of these. You caught me right at the tail end of watching all of these shorts for the lab. So I've watched 450 short films over the last month, um, and many of them feel like public service announcements. And I'm not trying to be rude, but like they're all about things that you've seen in the news, and then virtue signaling of trying to showcase the wholesomeness of the production team and the filmmaker. And it's, in reading short stories, it's like some of them are just about a guy who's fishing, and then like something crazy happens. And most of my favorite short films that stand the test of time are just about something timeless, evergreen. And then, I want to see something that makes me go, I can't believe they did that. Who the fuck are these people? And then want to reach out. That's the feeling that I want as a programmer. And I know, Sundance programmers feel the same way. They're perverts. So I think really just make something that is shocking, because I think young people tend to feel like they're going to get into trouble, or that they're going to get canceled or something. And like, you're not gonna. It's my newest short film it's called Is Now a Good Time, and it's about me being a Marvel Disney representative going to the bedside of a dying child to show off Captain America 4, and the child dies, and I'm traumatized by it, and it's very funny, and we're going to get into a lot of trouble. So I don't know. I think really that's the kind of thing that I want to feel when I'm in a shorts block at a film festival. I'm just like, good God, what, what balls, what gumption.
What do you think was your lowest moment in all of this? Because we've talked about your highs, but where did you feel the lowest?
So far, so
Don't-
far. Let's see. Let's see. I made a feature in 2009 called No Flood Wall Here that I wrote and directed about post-Katrina New Orleans, where I'm from. And I made the crucial and common mistake of first-time filmmakers, where I assumed the audience would be interested. And good God, were they not? I wasn't interested. So really sitting outside of that screening at the New Orleans Film Festival that my parents came to, and that was it. And looking at a canal and a shopping cart that had been turned over and rusted, and just thinking, I'm never going to make another boring movie. I may never make another movie. That was definitely an inspiration for me to never make something boring ever again. That was a very low moment. But honestly, it's been the last 4 years. I mean, the planet hit a brick wall in 2020, going full speed, and we haven't recovered. And young people haven't had that near peer mentorship that I have had of looking over somebody's shoulder while they're editing to go, oh, I didn't know you could do that. It's okay. Like there are things that there has been such loss and sadness in film that it may take a while to correct itself before we can see really excellent films in the future. We're lucky to have good ones now. There's a new Scorsese, a new Fincher. Like there's cool stuff happening, but it is there have been a few dark nights of the soul. In fact, the man sitting in the room with you came to my house when I was having one, and he sat excuse me, sat at my kitchen table, and we'd gone for a long walk, and he said, Jim, you have your house, you have Julia, you have a dog, you have a garden. That's enough, man. You've made some great movies. And it's different when my wife says it to me every day than when Walter said it to me. So that was really big for me. That was a dark moment, but I think about him all the time.
Do you have hope for the future, not just comedy, but for the future of the film industry as a whole? Where do you think it's headed?
Oh, it's going to collapse, the entire thing. They spend too much money. The marketing requires that it is the same budget that they market the film as the budget of the film. It's unsustainable. Fincher and Spielberg and Lucas said that in 2012. They wrote an article, I think in New York Independent Film Week or something like that. Yeah, all it's going to take is about 5 flops before one of them goes bankrupt. We're already seeing mergers of Disney now buying Hulu and Fox and everything. It is going to get to a place where everything is so sanitized and monopolized that the only time you're going to be able to see a good movie is when it's independent. But it's scary. I've talked to a few filmmakers who have gotten a call from Sundance in the last few weeks that their film is playing there, and 6 of the 9 that I've heard from already have distribution. They're already studio films. So it's like, it really is going to be tastemakers at these festivals and stuff being like, no, fuck that shit. Like, it's got to be a good movie. Like, we got to pick. If we're going to give an award to somebody, it's got to be something that doesn't already have distribution. It should be something to help people. So I don't know. It depends on what day you ask me. I can feel really low about the future of film. And then fucking Alfonso Cuarón came over to the house a couple weeks ago, and I was being mopey, and he was like, "No, Matt, we got great films. We got the Killer. We have Killers of the Flower Moon. This is great cinema. Like, don't get too down about cinema." Cabrón. So I don't know. It really depends on what day you ask me. I am hopeful that somebody's going to come and do the stuff that is good and crowd work, but I've yet to see it.
Here we go.
Hi, Jim. I'm Jack. I'm a sophomore here. I wanted to ask you, kind of building on that, you say, like, agencies are kind of out the window at this point. Studios are irrelevant if you can get the money yourself from crowdfunding. What is still important then? Like, if these things that historically have been the big institutions in film, what institutions are left that are still important and that young filmmakers should be paying attention to?
Oh, I mean, iTunes, like channeling. Like, if you think about it, historically, when these studios were incredibly relevant, they were the only place that you could see the movies. So like, a movie theater chain, if you look at RKO or any of these giant older movie studios, that was the only place that had the network to get movies on screens in front of people. So like you had to go through these channels. And now that everything is fractured and siloed, iTunes still matters. Netflix still matters. That's like Madison Square Gardens. They don't make good movies, but a lot of people watch them. Amazon, like all of these different streaming platforms are just the new movie theaters. And then movie theaters, like AMC is really cool. They're cutting deals with independent filmmakers to, if you send them their movie or your movie and you pay advertising costs and can guarantee a certain number of seats, they'll four-wall your movie. Like I think the technology has just made it possible to reach an audience in a way that was impossible even 10 years ago. So, there are still institutions that matter. Sundance, there are people that really do care about craftsmanship and quality and giving movies to perverts and not, sanitizing stuff. But, it's what I say in Thunder Road. It's like we are living history. It's you look back at Thomas Jefferson and you're like, oh, it seems so clean in the textbooks, but it's like it takes us making sure that the culture of cinema is still alive in order to keep it afloat. So I'm doing my best. I'm 37, but really it's going to be y'all trying to carry on the fetish of making 90-minute content instead of TikTok videos.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Using this as a segue, we're going to move into more audience-based questions. Nick,
Yes.
who do we have first?
Yeah, we have a question from Anne. If Anne would
Anne,
like
do
to
you
come
wanna
down and ask
You don't
a
want
question.
to? We can ask it for you if you want.
Yes, I can.
Anne's question is,
Yes, Anne is a sophomore, is interested in producing. The first question is, when you were turning Thunder Road into a feature film, how did you approach expanding the short into a feature?
I like that Anne's like, I'm not talking to him, but he'll answer the question. With the short, I listened to audiences of what they were getting out of it, of like that it was really funny and really sad. And out of the 20 Q&As that we had, I'd talked to people in the lobby and just got to understand what was personally meaningful to them, the losses that they had had in their lives, and interesting stories, anecdotes, and stuff like that. And then when I was trying to turn it into a feature, for a long time, I thought it was going to be that scene had to be the climax because it's insane, the eulogy. And then it wasn't going to work because I was like, oh, maybe we should film him having a relationship with his mom and struggling as a cop, and then she dies, and then does I was like, that sounds boring. That sounds like 8 Mile, and I'm like, it's not going to be. I'm not going to be as good as 8 Mile. And then I had the idea, maybe with some friends of mine. I want to say, I think it was my idea, but it might have been Matt McManus's. But he was like, what if the film started with that? And for a long time, I was like, nah, where does it go from there? And then I was like, yeah, where would it go from there? And I was like, oh, it's if he bombs this eulogy, and we never meet the mom, then the feeling of it would be everybody implants their mother in this thing. If you never see the mom, it's like it's every mom and what that represents. And then I was like, then it could just be like an episode of King of the Hill where it's like a kitchen sink comedy of trying to get your daughter to like you again. And I was like, that sounds like a lot of fun. I could do that. And then I had the reminders app on my phone, which is the reminders app where it's like you can set up things and say, hey, Siri, remind me of something. But I built it out in scenes, so like ideas for scenes, and then you can move them around. So it was like a good screenplay. And then when it got to be good enough with enough scenes, I screen grabbed it and then printed it out. And I was like, yeah, that could be a good screenplay. And then I taped it to my buddy PJ's wall. And then he was out of town. He lived in a basement. And I listened to Bruce Springsteen's album, Nebraska, the acoustic one, on repeat. And I drank a bunch of Budweiser. And then that became the first draft of the Thunder Road feature. But I had to get out of my way. I was like, oh, it has to be perfect. It has to be this awesome thing that's just as good as the short, instead of like I just have to do it. I just have to write it. What's that expression? Perfect is the enemy of great, and done is better than great. Yeah. So I wrote it in like 6 days, 5 days in PJ's basement, and then rewrote it over a couple of months. But it turned out good. It's a good feature. Yeah, it's quite good.
We have a question from Maria Coop, who's a freshman and is interested in directing.
Maria, do you want to ask her?
Yeah. Come on down. Yeah. Do you want to do your first one about the qualities of the people?
Yeah, so what kind of, hello, what kind of qualities are you looking for people and their films that make you want to invest your resources into it?
For me, a lot of it's the same. Like I'm trying to think of the Kickstarter campaigns that I've backed or shared. Like kindness is number one. If someone has been kind on the internet to me, like I don't even have to have met them, but if they've been, supportive or lovely, or if I've had a good conversation with them, I usually very deeply consider retweeting or backing their Kickstarter campaign. That's rare in the film industry, somebody who is kind and gives a shit. So I guess that's number one. And then really the best advice that I've heard was from a woman named Meet Kim, who used to work at Kickstarter. And she said, people back people, not the campaign, not the movie. So like, it's one thing to show off behind the scenes footage of, what the thing is going to look like, or proof of concept footage, but really nothing is more effective than you just being yourself and earnest and talking about the project and why it's meaningful to you. Somebody who gives a shit, it comes across when someone actually cares when they're talking about a campaign that they're trying to do. And with the Thunder Road feature, it was like I had to do it. And the short, it was like I had to do it. I didn't do a campaign for that one. I did a campaign for the feature, but it was like I was going to die unless I did the thing. And anytime I talked to people about it, it was very evident that this was something that was going to come out of Jim's body and that he just had to do it. People jumped on. People were very, very helpful because I was so passionate about the thing. Seriously passionate, not impersonating it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have
Thank you.
another question from Rowan Taylor Laska. Rowan, if Rowan would like to come down.
Wait.
We also have about 15 minutes left, so we're just going to wrap up with a few more of these and then say goodbye.
All right.
Wonderful.
Try to be quick.
I got time too. If you need more time, I got nothing to do.
We'll let you go at 7:30.
Thank Christ.
Hi, I'm Rowan. I'm a junior in the program, and you mentioned something earlier that intrigued me about your blocking with your comedy. I think you were specifically talking about pulling up your pants in front of the radio, like the kind of micro mannerisms. I was wondering how you come up with those and then how you sort of execute them without it seeming robotic.
I did it 1,000 times. You do it 1,000 times. And then that's really, I'm not a trained actor. I've never taken an acting class. But because of that, I felt very inadequate. And so I felt like I had to do it 1,000,000 times in order for it to be convincing that it would be good. And so you just do it in front of a mirror a bunch, or you film yourself doing it on like an iPhone across the room, and then you watch the game tape like you're playing football or something. Just like, okay, it could be better here, this could be better now, it's kind of boring. These two sentences could be one. Like it is a real living performance comedy. And with comedy, it's difficult because if you're good at it, audiences are more judgmental of it because they'll sit exactly like you're sitting around and go, oh, he thinks he's very funny. And so it has to be very subtle and authentic. Otherwise, you lose the crowd. And I studied Steve Coogan playing Alan Partridge. If you haven't seen it, he's been playing the guy for 40 years now. But he is so humiliating to watch. He humiliates himself live on air a million times over. It's such a funny thing and challenging to do that when you get to know him and his facial expressions and how that tells a whole story, you fall in love with it a bit. You're on team Alan, and the same goes with me of the way that we introduced my character in Thunder Road. I knew that if we did it very slowly from far away and then moved in, you would gradually be hypnotized and get to know the guy better. So practice. And if you do it 1,000,000 times in rehearsal, you'll think of something and you go, oh, that's better. And you run over to the laptop and write it down. And that becomes the joke that ends up in the thing. In the beta test, there was a moment, the hardest I think we did it 16 times. It was so difficult to get because I was laughing the whole time. But there's a moment that's really brutal, and it's me shouting at my assistant. And it culminates in me. It's like a minute of me shouting at her. I'm just chewing her out in front of everybody at the office. It's awful. And I'm walking to my office, and I turn back to her and I go, you don't know the first fucking thing about my personal life. And that's how it was supposed to be. It was just supposed to be me being rude to her as like a parting shot. And then I left. And then Thomas Cross, my producer, I was in the makeup chair, and he's like, what if he says something that was just like, clearly she knows a lot about his personal life. And so we added in, and I am going to need a new bottle of Pepto-Bismol immediately after lunch. So it's like, this guy's going to have diarrhea unless he gets Pepto-Bismol. And so to put those together, it was so much funnier and better. And to watch it with a crowd, it's fulfilling. But I would not have gotten that unless I was on my feet doing it, and then having people that I trust go, oh no, let's figure something else out to make that work.
It's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a question from another Rowan. This is Rowan Harper. If Rowan, you'd like to come down.
Man, they're putting Ann to shame. Everybody's coming up. Let's see.
Hi, Jim. I'm also Rowan. I like your To Catch a Thief poster. I've been looking at it the whole time.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit. Like you, many of us here are interested in multiple aspects of the film industry, and I was wondering how you found your passion and what's it look like practically on set, juggling so many responsibilities. You're an actor, you're a producer, you're a director, you're an editor. How does that work? And what advice can you give to us that are interested in more than just one little area of the film industry?
I think you're not alone. I think, there's a great precedent in YouTubers that I'm following. I love cinema. I love all of these filmmakers who are just writers and directors or just directors, but I've never had success in that landscape. And my movies would not have gotten made had I not done all of the stuff, burning the candles at both ends, and wearing many hats. So I don't think that you're alone. I think there's going to be a lot more people like us moving forward because there's just more channels than there were back in the day. And you can throw the rule book out a bit as to what you need to be, specialized in. And instead, if you're just generalized and you can make stuff, you can compete with the big guys, and audiences can't tell the difference. So, yeah, I would say learn more. I mean, I'm learning stuff in visual effects. I learned After Effects for the beta test, my last feature, and it's just raised the ceiling of my directing because when somebody says, oh no, hold on, there's a water bottle in the frame, I can just look at it and go, no, it's 15 seconds, don't worry about it. Like, let's keep going. It's just a much easier way to be more fluent in the filmmaking. So I would not feel down and out or that there is any kind of benefit in being so specialized. Most of my income comes from executive producing projects or editing something for somebody or doing a rewrite on things. Like I have many different revenue streams, and that's the only way I've been able to stay afloat because I'm multifaceted.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a question from Sophie. Sophie, if you'd like to come down. So you have Sophie.
She's coming.
Oh my God. Price is right. Sorry.
Okay.
So like I asked a question? Sorry.
So yeah, we were told that Thunder Road was 1 6-hour shoot. I was wondering, what resources did you pour the most into to make the shoot clean, concise, and just get it all done?
Yeah. So I think it was, in the end of the day, I think it was $2,400. The short cost $6,000. My savings, basically. so we had to pay a deposit on the location, which was $1,200, and then the fee for the location, which was also $1,200. We got the deposit back, but I didn't think that a $6,000 short was also going to cost $7,200, and so that was a shock 2 days before we started shooting. And then the rest of the money really went to, let's see, it was $400 to rent the full policeman's uniform. We paid extras $35 a piece. I think there was about 20, so that adds up pretty quickly. We had to rent a dolly, a friend, which I think was $700. A buddy of mine loaned me his Red camera, which is actually the same camera that shot Krisha, one of my favorite movies of all time. Movie that got me off the couch to make movies. But it was the same body. And my buddy PJ or JP, who had produced that film, was like, "Oh, it's still laying around. Do you want to just borrow it for the day?" And then it was $700 to rent the lens, this like gigantic zoom lens, 24 to 290 Anjuna Optima lens. And then I paid the DP $599, which is how much it would cost. $600 you have to pay taxes on it, and I just paid him $599. The same with the producer, Mark, my buddy. And then I edited it for free. I mean, that's one shot, so basically taking the shot, and then a whole bunch of sound design and ADR. So the whole time that I was dancing, I had to hold up a microphone and run around the room and do it in my living room because the microphone was hidden in the tie. And when I started dancing, it was all scratchly, and so I had to completely replace that for the dance number. So all in all, it was at the end of the day, it was $6,000, and that's where the money went. Was that helpful?
Oh yeah, I was also wondering like resources in terms of like time planning, manpower.
Yeah, I mean, I really, it was finding the location, and then we posted in Facebook groups and Craigslist to be like, "Hey, we're looking for extras if anybody wants to come." There's a really great Facebook group called I Need a Producer. There's also other ones like I Need an Editor, I Need a Production Assistant. It's really helpful, but that was a really great way to find people in the area that were great resources or with no great resources to be able to get catering for 35 people and stuff like that. But I guess the majority of the time went into rehearsals. It was me on the drives to work, probably for a month and a half, just prepping that. I had 24-hour access to the lead actor, so I was able to rehearse it in the shower and stuff like that. So that took up the most time. And then I would shoot auditions or rehearsals of it and then send it to the producer and the cinematographer so they would have an understanding of what the physics of the scene was going to be. I spent an hour with somebody to help me out with the dance choreography, Catherine Burns, and filmed that, and then went home and studied it a whole bunch. I guess like rehearsal for a one take, monologue, that was the biggest time suck. And then editing it, it was like, it was just pretty quick because you pick the shot and stabilize it, and then get your buddy to do the sound design and color it, and then submit it. So all in all, I think it was just all of the prep, and finding a location was relatively easy, and finding the cast was relatively easy. It was me.
Very cool. Thank you.
We've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask a last question here. You mentioned Krisha being an inspiration from you, and Trey Schultz has made a number of kind of micro-budget features that are attainable as a student to take inspiration from and say, hey, we can make Krisha in a couple weekends or something like that. What are some other films that you would recommend to us to go out and watch that are kind of that micro-budget contained production?
I hate to say it, Krisha is the best. Krisha is the one that got me to make movies again because it cost $35,000 and he shot it at his mom's house in Texas. And they just did so much prep. Previously, if you were going to do that, it would be the Duplass brothers and it would be shot on like mini DV. And this is the first movie that I'd seen shot on red that felt like a Terrence Malick, P.T. Anderson movie. Robert Altman, and I was like, oh, this is really the birth of a new American indie renaissance, where it's people that are making stuff that is cinematic instead of mumblecore. So I always say Krisha. I'm trying to think of some other really good micro budget ones, and I hate to say it, but I'm blanking. I mean, Shithouse is really good. that was going that cost like 25 grand. Cooper Rafe did that in his dorm. That's crazy. A lot of these are anomalies, though. I mean, really, when you hear these stories, it's people that won the lottery. It's people that have the experience and wherewithal in teams to do this stuff. It's like, he shot it in University of Texas, and there's a giant film school there, so he could knock on a dorm door and say, hey, do you want to spend spring break here shooting a feature? And a lot of people around the world don't have that kind of access to community. And usually Hollywood will promote people like me as a billboard to be like, come on down to the Boomtown Casino. Jim won big here, so maybe you will too. Some of that is clever marketing rather than actually reproducible. Krisha is very reproducible. Krisha was a Kickstarter campaign, and Trey slept on his mom's couch while they made the thing. It was also a feature beforehand that failed. So he had made it for $12,000, and it was a feature-length film. He shot it for 11 days, and he tried to edit into a feature and had a nervous breakdown because it wasn't very good. And so he cut it into a 16-minute short film that won a special jury prize or mention at South by Southwest that then got him the $35,000 he needed to redo it and make it better. And so Krisha, I think, is the best answer for that, because it's like overcoming failure. It's also something I do all the time. And then making stuff with your friends. And if you just focus on performance and the people you're putting in frame, and telling a good story, it can be very good.
Thank you. That's it for me. Jamie, Walter, do you have anything else?
That puts us at time.
Hey, can we get a group picture? I'm just gonna have everyone come up on the stage underneath you, and we're just gonna stand there for a while. We'll take a screenshot. Yeah, you ready for this?
Everybody. Oh wow, there's a bunch of people.
Hey, and Jim, I'm going to tell you offline what Maria Coop's perverse idea is for a short film, because it's fucked up.
Okay,
so
good.
I'll tell you about
Okay,
it.
good. I can't, Maria. You sound like you're making good movies. This is gonna be great.
And Audrey. Got a partner.
Okay, good.
What are you doing, a push-up?
All right.
Oh, that's cool. If you put peace up, balloons come up. Whoa. Oh my God, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio. Wow.
Guys, hey, a big round of applause for Jim. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, Jim, I think about that conversation a lot, too. I miss you, buddy.
Miss you too, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I'll talk
Thank
to you
you for having me.
Give you a call. Thanks,
Good
Jim.
boy.